Friends, before we begin, I see there's some of you who are standing towards the back. We do still have some seats up front, and we'll wait just a moment if any of you want to come up and take a seat. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai roi lo echsar, Binote sheyalbitzeni al me menochot yanachaleni, Nafshi yishovev, Yanacheni v'magle tzedek lema'an shemo, Gam ki helech begetz amavet, lo irara ki at hayimadi, shivtecha umishantecha hemayim nachamoni, ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged Sorirai, Dishanta Vashamen Roshi, Kosir Vaya, Achtov Chased Yirdifuni, Koyame Chayai, Vishaveti, Beveit Adonai, Leorech Yamim. Chanted for you the words of our 23rd Psalm. In moments when we are seeking comfort, when we are in need of being consoled and feeling at peace, we often turn to the psalmist. And so at this time, I invite everyone to recite with me as we say together, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever." In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we will remember her. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we will remember her. In the opening buds and in the rebirth of spring, we will remember her. In the blueness of sky and in the warmth of summer, we will remember her. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we will remember her. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we will remember her. When we are weary and in need of strength, we will remember her. When we are lost and sick at heart, we will remember her. When we have joys we yearn to share, we will remember her. So long as we live, she too will live, for she is now a part of us as we remember Cynthia Evans. To her children, to Peter, JC, and Emily, to Todd, to her brothers, Mark and David, also to her sister-in-law, Robin, and to her mother-in-law and father-in-law, to Betty and Bob, to all of the members of the family, and to so many dear and cherished friends, so many of you who were able to join us in person today. those of you who join us via the live stream. Our hearts are joined together in shock, in sadness, and yet we will find the strength to not just remember her life, but to celebrate it each and every day as we remember your beloved Cindy. Cindy's journey began here in Cleveland. She was born on May 6, 1967, to Renee and Shelley Schechter, both of blessed memory. She was the youngest of the 3 Schechter children, and Cindy, along with her brothers Mark and David, grew up in Shaker Heights, first on Ingleside and then the family moving to Lytle Road. Following her graduation from Shaker Heights High School in 1985, Cindy matriculated to Ohio University's Scripps College, where she majored in journalism. Cindy, we know, was a loving and devoted daughter. She was very close with her parents and exceptionally close with her mother, Renee. Cindy and Renee shared a great deal of quality time together. They had a love of reading, and together they found time giving back to their community and volunteering as they tutored students in the Cleveland Public Schools. And this mother-daughter team loved to shop together, they loved to eat together, and mostly they just had fun together. After her dad's passing in 2001, Renee was diagnosed with cancer, and Cindy and Todd had Renee come live with them and their children for 18 months while she recovered. Renee and her granddaughter Emily were roommates during this time. Mark and David, you were truly blessed to have known a wonderful sister who was not just a sibling, but also a true, good, and trusted friend. Mark, you shared with me that the way she listened, you talked about her ear, that she had a good ear. The way she listened and the advice that she was able to give after listening, her good advice, her counsel always came back in a form that you described as pure love. Mark, you also shared that there was this playfulness about Cindy. She wanted everyone to enjoy life and to have fun. And if it was something that you were into or somebody else was into, it may not have been her cup of tea, but if it made you or others happy, then she loved it for your sake. She loved it for them. You described her as joyful and someone who always made people feel good. And David, you remember a sister who is vibrant and funny and had a great sense of humor. You said she was a bit of a tomboy. And in your adult years, you recalled how it just meant the world to you when Cindy came to visit you in California when you were serving in the Navy Seabees. In describing your relationship with your sister, you said, we were tight. We were close. And Robin and Cindy were very close. Robin, you had this routine with her. You would do her hair, and then you would go out for drinks. And through this act, you bonded and grew so many wonderful memories. And I have to mention Betty and Bob as well. Described to me by your family as Cindy's second set of parents. I know that the love and the closeness was true and deep and real. Cindy was described to me as a woman who was a lover of animals. And for over 25 years, she was a vegetarian. She made this choice because of her love for animals. She was involved with animal rescue organizations. And in addition to this vegetarian diet, she was an avid runner, 5 to 6 days a week, starting at 6 a.m. She would run with her favorite running partner, her best buddy, Briar. In mentioning Briar, I have to say that in her obituary, both Briar and Chloe the cat are mentioned. But this was a woman who was healthy. She cared about taking care of her body. And she didn't just talk about it, she lived it. She was articulate, she was creative, she was an excellent writer and conversationalist. And she took great pride in being part of the Shaker Heights schools. She loved the fact that she was part of the Shaker Heights school system. And she was devoted to her kids' schools. And her 3 children do not need to hear it from me because they already know it, but I must say it, that the 3 of you were, without any doubt, her greatest pride, her greatest loves, and her dearest treasures. And Peter, JC, and Emily, I have no adequate words today. We are all in shock. When I spoke with your Uncle Mark last night, he shared with me this little story. He said as a kid growing up, if he thought something wasn't right or wasn't fair or maybe he didn't get what he wanted, he would say to your grandfather, Shelley, he'd voice his complaint or his concern, and your grandfather would often say to Mark, "Life ain't fair, kid." Well, now in a much different way, we know that life ain't fair. There's nothing about this past week and nothing about this day that makes sense or feels fair. All of us here today, we can only pray that the blessing of memory and the memories of your sweet mother, that these will forever guide you and be with you. The 3 of you are surrounded today in love. Your dad, your uncles and aunt, your grandparents, your extended family, and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of your mother's dearest friends. Lean on all of these people. Lean on them. Go to them. Listen to their stories about your mom. Your mother's love for you will always shine on you through them. I didn't have the privilege of knowing Cindy. We met briefly at the time of her mother's passing, but I didn't really know the woman who all of you knew so well. But in speaking with her loved ones yesterday, I was reminded of a poem by Ralph Waldo Emerson. The poem is entitled Success. To laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics, and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden path, or a redeemed social condition, to know even one life has breathed easier because you lived. This is to have succeeded. And in her all too short time on this planet, we know that Cindy succeeded. And so today, with heavy hearts, with tears, we find the strength to join with the sages of our people as we declare these words, Zichrona Livracha. We pray that the memory of Cindy Schechter Evans and the good deeds that she performed here in the land of the living, that these will always be for a blessing. Amen. We also know that words which come from the heart enter directly to the heart. And I must share, especially with some of our friends who are standing still, that we have 9 amazing people who have words from their heart to share with us. And so, while you certainly may remain standing, the Jewish mother in me wants to encourage you to know that we have at least 10 seats and another 4 or 5 seats over here. You should not be shy. Please come and take a seat if you wish. So friends, with that, let me please call upon our first speaker, and that is her son, Peter.
I have no idea what to say. As Cindy's oldest child, I feel this pressure to write an incredible speech that perfectly encapsulates her life and somehow also brings me closure. I'm not sure how I'm supposed to do this when I haven't even begun to process what has happened. I flew into town 16 days ago when my mom was admitted to the hospital with chronic headaches. I packed clothes to last me a couple days and a sweater for Rosh Hashanah, assuming that my mom would be healthy within the week. Instead of getting the chance to go to temple, that ended up being the day that my mom was unexpectedly diagnosed with cancer. 7 days later, she died. A lot of people would call this unfair, too soon, a tragedy. I try to look for the opportunity. My mom was a selfless person, maybe sometimes to a fault. She always put her friends and family first, and there was nothing in the world my mom cared about more than JC, Emily, and I. She made her friends swear not to tell us kids about her headaches for the first 3 weeks because she didn't want to inconvenience our lives. When I first arrived back in Cleveland, she asked me to go back to San Francisco to focus on my business, and I know she did the similar things with my siblings. For a woman who cared so much about improving the lives of those around her, it would be insensitive to sit around solely in despair. My mom would want us to celebrate her life, to reflect in this experience, and to gain something from her death. So I ask all of you, what can you learn from this event? I spent 6 restless nights by my mom's side in the hospital, so I had a lot of time to ponder this question. For me, I quickly recognized that I was in the middle of one of the very few pivotal experiences of life, and what I saw unfolding during the days was very interesting. There were moments of laughter, like when my mom, who hadn't been talking, briefly sat up and announced, "You guys are so great. I don't know if I do this for any of you." There were moments where we distracted ourselves, like when my siblings and I ran around liberating chairs from all over the hospital and sneaking them back into my mom's room. It ended up causing a fire hazard. And there were moments of courage, like when my mom was thrashing around in pain from 10 p.m. till 5 a.m., and I wanted to run, but I stayed by her side. So yes, this is one of the tragic times of life, but I didn't only feel pain. I also felt love. I didn't only experience fear, I also displayed courage. I cried, but I also laughed. I saw myself at my lowest, and I found myself at my best. I learned that if I can find the silver linings during one of the worst times of my life, I can find the ways to succeed in every moment of life. I learned who I am and who I can become. Thank you for making me the man I am today. Thank you for everything that you gave me. Thank you for teaching me one final lesson. I love you, Mom.
Thank you so much, Peter. I would like to now call on Kelly, Cindy's best friend since college.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kelly, and I met Cindy in 1985, our freshman year in college. It seems like we have spoken every day since. It's sad to say, but I may not need the unlimited text and talk plan on my cell phone anymore. Cindy was my precious and irreplaceable friend, and she would have helped me write this, so if I don't do a good job, I feel it might be her fault. We have shared everything, and I struggled with how to put all of the wonderful, amazing experiences, adventures, and conversation in words. We shared each other's secrets, desires, and fears. It has been a joyous ride, with her at my side as my happy place, my confidant, and my soul sister. I am so glad she was at my wedding this past July, looking beautiful as ever. Before even attempting to summarize our wonderful friend, I would like to acknowledge her children and family. Peter, JC, and Emily, I am so sorry for your loss. First of all, I am so proud of you and who you have become. I can still see you as if you were in elementary school, but now you have transformed into beautiful, responsible, and loving young adults. Watching you advocate for your mother's care over the past few weeks has been so inspiring and admirable. I have been in awe of how you have navigated these difficult times, and I know your mother was so impressed as well. You are your mother's proudest and happiest moments, and you are a striking resemblance of her personality, looks, and charisma. You are her legacy and spirit, and they will remain with you forever. Mark and David. Cindy was so fortunate to have not only one but two amazing brothers. She loved you both so much, and if she were here today, she would thank you for taking such great care of her over the years, especially in these past few weeks. Although recently she couldn't express herself in words, you know that she appreciated your tireless efforts, your humor, protectiveness, and your kind souls by her side until the end. We all have had our own experiences with Cindy, and it encompasses the wide spectrum of life. As most of you in the room could agree, Cindy was not known for being early. As I look around here now, I think she may be actually late for her own funeral. She would always mask her tardiness by a warm, infectious smile and a bubbly personality. Cindy could embrace each day. She loved to laugh and make others laugh, and she helped me and so many others in countless ways. She gave me such joy and happiness. So many of us considered her our best friend. There was not too many things that she did not like, but I will name just one. Her least favorite word was moist, especially in reference to any bakery product. There are countless moments, stories, and experiences to share, but I would like to conclude by saying something to Cindy from all of us. Cindy, the energy and love that you shared was overwhelming. You have provided so much love and healing, and most of all, comfort in our daily lives. Your presence was intoxicating and magnetic, and you were filled with so much compassion. All of our hearts are heavy, but we know you want us to pursue our dreams and live life to the fullest. Your youth will forever shine, and we all want to say thank you for having such an impact on our lives. Not a day will go by when you are not sorely missed. It has been hard watching you these past few weeks, but we are all happier knowing that you are no longer suffering, but instead you are smiling down on us with your mom, your dad, Barry, your dog Briar, and countless others. Rest peacefully, sweet friend. You are loved, and we will miss you so deeply.
Thank you, Kelly. I now want to call on her daughter, Emily.
Yeah, wow is right. Right? Thank you. This sucks, huh? Oh man, how does a girl sum up her time with her mother? Because all daughters know that it's never truly over. Every time I catch my reflection or find myself speaking with my hands, there she is. Every time a daughter gets reminded of the resemblance or dons her mother's clothes, there her mother is. I think this is one of my mom's proudest accomplishments, that everyone who saw us together lovingly doted on me as her mini-me. I used to hate this. I would complain that my mother treated me like a doll she could live vicariously through. But as I aged, I began to see her efforts for what they truly were. Wise. My mother saw her own potential and missed opportunities in me and wanted to get a head start on helping me live up to them. She pushed me to take French and not quit sports, among many other things she wished she had done. She could see so much of herself in me that she knew what I would be grateful for eventually. even if it meant receiving sass in the meantime. Mom was so empathetic that she gracefully accepted my misdirected anger at the world, knowing we'd make up for it in the future. I would rage about how I didn't want to be like her. I wanted to be my own person, and I didn't want to have kids, all out of spite. But as I grew, I began to realize that all of my best qualities were due to her, whether inherited or taught. I slowly began to look back and appreciate all she had quietly suffered. I realized not all were as lucky to have as loving, elegant, witty, smart, and overall kind of a mother as I was. She was spunky and weird and cool and so ready to be my best friend. It wasn't until the last year that I began to move into this role. We got closer and began to communicate all the things we had held in over the years. I found myself longing to crawl into bed with my mom, a comfort I confidently insisted I would never need past the age of 9. I found myself knowing she would be the only one to soothe my heartbreak, or the only one awake to hear my stories as I came home late in California and early here. The years of taking my mother for granted were finally coming to a close, for the most part. I could see the immense joy it brought to her to see her secretive and intentional efforts finally beginning to pay off. When I began... I could wait. When I began to come to terms with the possibility that we might lose her, this was the thing I couldn't stop thinking about. It just felt so unfair that she spent her life building a strong foundation for a future she would never experience. How does one reconcile that? I found myself thinking about this possibility the morning I let myself return to school. I headed to the airport to tie up loose ends before we started chemo. I was hopeful. We all were. But for some reason, I walked into that airport at 10 a.m. and found myself sitting at a bar by my gate. To save face, I'm just going to say it was because I was going to miss Great Lakes Brewing oh so much. Seated next to me was a mom, on her way to visit her daughter having a hard time in college. We got to talking after she watched me take a shot of tequila and felt compelled to ask, "Are you okay?" We talked about the special love-hate relationship that mothers and daughters have. She said that her daughter seemed to be finally needing her for the first time in a while. And I was stricken with sadness and anger and jealousy that that girl got to have her mom actually come. I mentioned that I wished my mother had had more time to get along. My mother and I had had more time to get along. And this woman looked at me and said something profoundly comforting. I wouldn't change a thing, and I can promise you, your mother felt the same way. So yes, this sucks. And yes, I wish we could have had more time to laugh at the younger years. And yes, I'm devastated she won't get to be annoyingly controlling at my wedding. But at the end of the day, nothing helps more than to know that she was happy to take our brattiness. And I know she wouldn't want us to spend our time wishing for what might have been. So dear Mom, I promise you I will surge forward with passion, creativity, and tenacity, to always ask for your advice because I know how much you love to give it unsolicited, to let this make me stronger, and to not wish to change a thing. Love, Emily.
Thank you, Emily. A number of people that I'm calling on today, it says best friend next to their name. I'll let you all duke it out later. But I'd like to call on a best friend, Vicki.
Thank you, Amy. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Vicki Childress, and I met Cindy in 1994. My brand new husband, Chris, and I had just moved to Cleveland from New York City, Having never spent time in Cleveland prior to the move, Chris and I were fresh transplants looking for friends. A shared love of music, hiking, bonfires, and feisty guys who were very fond of bourbon forged our bond. Cindy was a very generous friend. She listened intently and was always thinking about how she could ease your way or lighten your load. She introduced me to all of her friends, and the way she introduced me made me sound much more interesting than I was. We quickly became chosen family, and we were the Chevins family. The Chevins family grew very quickly. Cindy and I each had 3 children between 1997 and 2001. We were quite the scene, each sporting a child on our hip while we were 6 to 9 months pregnant. People would stare, and Cindy would just look them in the eye and say, "No, this was not planned." These were the years that Cindy and I started strategizing. Again, she was always thinking about how she could make my life easier, and, well, I'm kind of wired the same way, so we just leaned into it. We would get together and brainstorm how we could maximize the fun in this chaos we had created. For instance, we decided that a baseball cap could basically replace a shower. A good dance party could calm any toddler meltdown. We also discovered that one baby pool filled with bubbles and one without bubbles could very efficiently bathe 6 toddlers. We raised our kids like cousins. And having no family nearby, this may have been Cindy's greatest gift to me. As the kids grew older and busier, we were pulled in different directions, but our friendship remained tight. I could talk to Cindy about anything. I knew I would never be judged, and I knew that whatever I shared would be tightly locked in her vault. We talked through kid issues, marriage issues, friend issues, health issues. Nothing was sacred, and everything was safe. We helped each other make sense of things. I wish Cindy was still here. Maybe she could help me make sense of these last few weeks, but I doubt it. Recently, during one of our many philosophical discussions, we figured out the meaning of life. We decided we are born vulnerable, we die vulnerable. Life has to be about taking care of each other. It had to be. It seemed so clear to us that night. So today, I leave you with this challenge for our sweet, loving Cindy. Let's be generous friends. Let's really try to ease each other's load, and let's try not to judge. Let's take care of each other. She would really like that. Let's make that her legacy. Cindy, you were a massive love of my life, and I'm going to miss you something crazy. I'm holding every memory tight until we meet again.
Thank you, Vicki. I would now like to call on Jason, who has the title of lifelong friend and brother from another mother. Jason.
This is tough. Oh, I guess I should take my mask off. It was about 1989 or 90. I was playing in a band pretty frequently at Peabody's Cafe in Cleveland Heights. And suddenly there was this girl working there who was always smiling, always laughing, taking care of everybody. And I realized pretty soon that she knew me before I knew her. She knew everything about me. She knew what everybody was doing. We kind of formed a group of friends, a crew a lot of whom I see in here today. And she knew what they were all doing at all times. There's a Yiddish word, there's probably a better Yiddish word, but one that comes to mind is yenta, which is not necessarily always a flattering term. So it doesn't really fit. Todd came along before I knew it. They were married and having kids. They were all part of the crew. There were dinner parties, which they were always kind enough to invite me to. And I came to realize that the reason that Cindy knew everybody's business all the time was because she was taking care of all of us, especially me. So maybe a better word than yenta is a Hebrew word I learned a couple of days ago, and that's ima, which I believe is mom. And not like mother, like the mother of 3 wonderful children, but mom like, oh, mom, kind of mom. But Cindy was always taking care of me. When my band broke up and I was broke, Todd and Cindy were renovating a house, and despite my incredible lack of skills as a carpenter or a drywall hanger or electrician or plumber, I was hired to do all those tasks. And of course, Cindy made sure I had lunch every day, and that I didn't kill anybody on the job site, though that did almost happen. I can remember being at parties out at the Treadway farm, and in the middle of a long night of debauchery, Cindy might grab me by the arm and say, Zace. She called me Zace, and I called her Cece. She would say, Zace, have you eaten? And I would say, no, I don't think I have. And she would literally sit me down and put a steak in front of me and sit there until I finished it. I can remember being a single guy and living down in Coventry and getting calls in the middle of the day. The call might go like this, like, Zace, it's Cece. I hear you have a date tonight. And I would say, how in the world did you know I had a date? And she said, never mind. Have you thought about what you're wearing? And I would say, no, I really haven't thought about it at all. She said, well, let's think about it right now. Maybe some nice jeans and some nice shoes. If you have to wear your boots, you can. She'd pick out a shirt for me. And then she'd say, Zace, I want you to promise me you will not wear the leather vest. Though sometimes I did anyway, I guess. Well, then 25 years ago, I moved away from Cleveland, 500 miles away, and pretty soon I was out of the loop. Cindy was always in the loop, and in that way, she was my anchor to Cleveland. If I ever needed to know what was going on, I would call Cleveland, or I'd call Cindy, or she would call me before I even knew I needed to know what was going on and fill me in. She kept me in the loop and always took care of me when I came to visit, when I came to play. She was the first one backstage, making sure I ate before my show. She was the first one to offer me a place to stay and insist that I stay with them. And this is going to be tough. About 10 years ago, my dad died, and my mom was 89 years old and had to be moved to a nursing home, which was very tough for an only child. Cece was my sister all through that. My mom did not want to leave her house, but had to. And when I told her that she was moving to Judson Park, she was extremely upset and would barely speak to me. Cindy came to my mom's house and helped me pick out a few items, and literally went down there to Judson Park And with the help of the decorator there, completely decorated my mom's room so that the first time she walked in there, it felt like home. And it made the whole thing work. And Cindy would go and take my mom to lunch frequently, or just go sit in my room, my mom's room for hours with her, looking through old pictures. She took her to vote, and when the poll workers told my mom that her driver's license had expired and she wouldn't be able to vote that day, you all know Cindy would not stand for that. I should mention that she and I were brother and sister liberals for life. She was a good liberal. We could use more Cindy's these days. Yeah, but she made sure my mom voted that day, by God. And then my mom had a fall in the middle of the night one night and sustained a really bad head injury. So I came rushing back from Nashville and was visiting with my mom every day for 3 days until she died. Cindy was there every day and was in fact sitting next to my mom holding her hand when she took her last breath. I got a lot more bad stories, but I just wanted to say to Peter and JC and Emily, Cindy was my Ema, and I guess that makes me your brother. I've always felt more like your brother than one of your elders anyway, so I'd be honored to continue to be your brother or your uncle or your friend or whatever you want. That goes for you too, Todd. I love you guys. Cindy, I love you, my Ema. Without you, I'll be forever out of the loop.
Thank you, Jason. I want to now call on Cindy's best friend from childhood, and that's Catherine.
All Cindy's friends have to put their glasses on to read. Good morning, everyone. My name is Catherine Lucier Green, and I have known and loved Cyn like a sister since we were in first grade together. To be strictly accurate, our friendship really began in second grade. In first grade, I was the new kid at Lomond Elementary, and we were actually enemies. Cindy was a tough customer who threatened to beat me up more than once. But somewhere toward the end of that first year, our friendship took root, and the two of us never looked back. Cindy's kids maybe don't know this, but Cindy was quite the alpha dog back at Lomond. We ran in a crew of 5 kids. I'm learning that Cindy always had a crew. Cindy, me, Karen Kopelson, if you're there. Care, hi. Hallie, I know you're here. And Carolyn Webb, the 5 of us. And Cindy was unquestionably our leader. She often decided what our plans were for the day. Sounds familiar. And she was also our loyal and fierce protector. Cindy's 2 older brothers, Mark and David, definitely influenced our thinking back then, but Cindy went from threatening to beat me up to threatening to beat up anyone who gave me trouble. To put things in context, this was the mid-1970s. Those of you of a certain age will remember how it was. No internet, no social media, no cell phones, nothing much to watch on the 3 or 4 channels that TV had to offer. There were no trampoline parks, no laser tag, no video games, and the term play date did not exist. Such a concept would have seemed completely absurd to our parents back then. Our crew all lived in the same Shaker Heights neighborhood, and the Schechters lived right across the street from me. I probably spent more of my childhood in the company of Cindy and her family than I did with my own. The Schechter residence was always home to me, and Cindy was my best friend. During the school year, I routinely went over to Cindy's house in the morning, and we hung out until Mrs. Schechter told us it was time to leave for school. My true memory of this is of Renee, as Cindy and I really like to call her behind her back, absolutely shrieking at us from the bottom of the stairs every morning, and then Cindy cracking me up as we walked to school by doing a spot-on impression of her. I can hear it right now. After school, Cindy and I played together until it was time for dinner. In the summers, we ran wild all day, every day. Mark, I think it was you who said she was a bit of a tomboy. You're about to learn the truth of that statement. Some of our shenanigans would probably have given our parents, and Renee in particular, a heart attack had they known the full truth. Sleepovers at the Schechters. Renee would make us turn out the lights, but we would stay up all night and raid her refrigerator at some ungodly hour. Cindy daring me to jump off Karen's roof into a pile of leaves, leaving me with a broken arm. Cindy and I seeing how many people we could get on her bike at once, ending in a spectacular crash and me with another broken arm. Cindy and I collecting cans and redeeming them for cash to buy and eat as much candy as we could stuff our faces with. Cindy and I taking the dollhouse that she got for her birthday out behind the garage and turning it into a worm hospital. Cindy and I spying on her brothers and getting cursed out constantly by them. I want to mention that I was really afraid of you both, but also in awe of you both. Anyway, we would then promptly adopt all of their colorful vocabulary. Cindy and I constructing very elaborate games where the floor of her house was lava, and so we did an early and super sketchy version of what is now called parkour. So yes, Cindy and I were hooligans as children, but eventually I moved to Cleveland Heights, and Cindy and her family stayed in Shaker Heights. Given our parents' reluctance to drive us to each other's house, you would have thought we lived at opposite ends of the state. But we managed to stay in touch, talking for hours on the phone at least once a week. As the years progressed, Cindy and I saw less of each other, and the length between our visits grew. But Cindy was the rare friend whom you might be lucky enough to have, where time between visits was completely and utterly irrelevant. Whether it was weeks or months or years, reunions of Kath and Sin, or Sin, were always seamless and joyful. We just picked up the threads of our friendship where we'd left off, talking and laughing like loons, as though no time had passed at all. My friendship with this extraordinary human being has been the gold standard by which all other friendships have been measured in my life. My family so adored her too. To us, my dad and my uncle in particular, she will always be Cindy Schechter, the news dissector. Cindy was the best kind of extrovert, the most fun to be around, the most hilarious, smart, passionate, and compassionate person I've ever known. Cindy always jubilantly celebrated my victories and milestones, but her superpower was that she could always make me laugh, no matter how dark things seemed in the moment. When my mom passed away a few years ago, Cindy started sharing all of the borderline inappropriate stories about both of our moms and had me laughing uncontrollably through my tears. She taught me that laughter paired with love is never inappropriate. In fact, it is often one of the things that helps you get through the toughest times. Cindy and I shared a secret hope, which was that one day our children, who are around the same age, would form close friendships with each other, and that way the legendary friendship between the two of us would simply carry over into future generations. So Peter, JC, Emily, may your lives continue to be filled with all of the joy, the laughter, and the love that your mom brought into mine.
Thank you, Catherine. Todd?
There's a lot of you here. This is an utterly heartbreaking travesty that we're here today. I'm not happy to see any of you. Not happy for this gathering of friends and family. Certainly not like this. Sometimes circumstances conspire against our best laid plans and hopes. While Cindy and I are no longer together, it was Cindy's desire for she and I to transcend the stuff that happens and settle into a nice and wonderful future together. Friends who love each other, to enjoy what lies ahead. A future of kids getting married, grandkids, and life's happy events. And now that future, any future, was cruelly stolen from her and us who loved her. Over the past week or so in the hospital, I kept seeing snapshots of our life together, vignettes, little remembrances walking down a hallway. And I'd like to share some of those with you if I can, and hopefully with the poise that Peter and Emily maintained. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage against the dying of the light. We were so focused on getting Cindy out of the hospital. We had rage against the rules. We had rage against that awful cancer. We had rage that this was happening at all. And rage against the dying of our light. We brought Cindy home on Monday night, because she simply did not want to be in the hospital. Because of that open heart surgery she had as an 8-year-old child, she hated hospitals and doctors and anything medical, and she just wanted to be home. So we brought her home. Once she was settled in, we put the word out, and 50 to 75 of you came to the house, and you got to spend a couple minutes with her and tell her what was on your heart, say goodbye. Sometime after midnight, Peter, JC, Emily, and Chloe the cat spent time with their mother those last hours, and it was hard. But they climbed in bed with her, Chloe too, and shortly before 6 a.m., Cindy was able to let go. It is places like these where a community comes together to experience the circle of life. We sat here in this room in April of 2001 for Sheldon for her dad's funeral. Cindy was amazed and proud that her dad had an overflowing crowd comprised of all sorts of people, from those that he represented and helped and cared for as a lawyer to friends and family of all types. And here we are today, where the legacy of Sheldon shines brightly in the equally diverse crowd overflowing that is here to honor Cindy. We sat here again in August of 2013 for Renee, for Cindy's mom's funeral. What strikes me about that day is that Cindy and I felt that our kids should participate in the passing of their grandmother, their Mimi, and they should write something and stand right here and share that with all those who were gathered to pay their respects for Mimi. Emily and JC were able to do it. Peter was struggling, and the cancer, this cancer, stood up and put her arm around Peter and helped him finish. And so here we are for Cindy. I'm barely holding it together. I will never make sense of the crime that has occurred with Cindy leaving us at 55. Somehow, though, this place, this cantor, the traditions that we have allows me, it enables us to put one foot in front of the other, and that's the best hope I have for today. How we met, Jason said it a bit ago. He met Cindy at Peabody's Cafe. So too did I. I met Cindy when she was 24 years old. This was early September 1991. I was on a date with someone else who's forgotten to time. And there was this cute girl with dark hair standing at the bar next to me who was lamenting that to whomever she was with that she didn't have tickets to the upcoming Grateful Dead shows. My ears perked up. Here's my way in. Of course I had floor seats to the upcoming Grateful Dead shows. Hi, I'm Todd. Who are you? A few days later, I went to her parents' house where she was staying to drop the tickets off, and we chatted for a while in the library of that house. She points up to a book and says, "My dad's in that book." I looked up, and the title of the book is Mobbed Up in Cleveland. She has dark hair. Having grown up in Cleveland and whatnot, I thought, just walk away. By the way, Cindy's dad grew up with somebody whose name was mentioned in there, and all who know him would understand that's funny. But I did walk away, and we didn't talk again for 6 months. Friends, 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 right? I look around here and I see all our friends. It's hard to be married to someone who's in 79 friend groups, and everyone thinks that she's their best friend. We've had 3 of them on the dais here tonight. But if you were friends with her, you were friends with her for life, and she looked out for you, and she was a joy to be around. Fiercely loyal. We've heard that too. Cindy protects those she loves. But as the preface to this story, to hope it makes more sense, as she helped Jason with his clothes, Cindy loved clothes. She loved an outfit, she loved a look, and it had to be right. We were out late one night, seeing Jason and the Janglers, and the next morning we may have been more than a bit hungover and found ourselves online in a McDonald's. It was close to 10:30 a.m. when breakfast is over, and I had my eye on a sausage biscuit with egg as a way to curb the hangover. And time just seemed to stand still slowly, one customer after another, as we're trying to get to the cash register before it was 10:30. We were one person away when that magic hour struck, and the manager came over and swooped all the rest of the breakfast into the garbage. I may have expressed my outrage with an expletive or 4, and the guy in front of us turns around and yells at me how rude I was. How dare he do that? Cindy, being my fierce running partner, she's going to defend me. I see it. I see it in her face. I see the slow motion wind up. Here it comes. She's going to crush this guy with her response. She looks him up and down, head to toe, and with utter disdain says, "Go home and change your clothes." So I slunk out of there, never to go back to that McDonald's again, I fear. We've heard how she was an animal person, and here's a little different take on that. We know her actual love for animals. However, while Picasso had his blue period, Cindy had her animal spirit period, and inspiration certainly moved her brightly. There was a group of us who saw more than a few Grateful Dead and Jerry Garcia shows, and of course our favorite brother in music, Jason White and the Janglers. And it was during this time that Cindy saw us through her love and connection with animals. She saw our animal spirits, and she brought that out in us, and we felt it. And while there are more, we have here with us today a cat, Joelle, somewhere. A badger, Adam. A Mustang, Jason. A bird, Dana. Me, I was a deer. And later when you see when you see Emily, ask her what we used to see around the house about me being a deer. And Cindy frequently called me Tood the Deer Todd. Speaking of Tood or Tootie, Cindy was the queen of nicknames for our family and those around. And the calling of our nicknames frequently came with a pinch of our cheeks. But some of those nicknames for the kids, Peter became Peter Dews, and later when she didn't understand what his job was, she called him Data. JC has the most nicknames, a few of which are Rui, Tui, or simply Rue. Emily was Ooze, Uzi, or Emily Cremily Pie. Me, like I said, I was Toot or Tootie, which at first sounds like a nice, loving, and fun name. It was not short for Todd, but rather short for attitude. I have decades and multitudes of funny stories that are quintessentially Cindy, and I know you all do too. I will be forever saddened that there are no new stories coming out or that we will not be able to enjoy a future with our utterly outstanding children and living through their adventures. But I want to leave you with two thoughts. There was a song that became her guiding light after her mom died in 2013. I want you to look it up, listen to it, think about it. And when we first heard it, it represented Cindy's mom for her, and now it represents Cindy. So it is Are You All Right by Lucinda Williams. Listen to it. I posted it on my Facebook page this morning. Let me know what you think and how it affects you. This was a big one for Cindy. And two, this is my final thought. Whether we intend to or not, we will leave a legacy. The question is, what will yours be? If you want to see Cindy's legacy, go spend time with Peter, JC, and Emily. They are outstanding young adults who care and love deeply, and within whom I see Cindy. And I cannot think of a better, more fitting, and enduring legacy than that. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Friends, we have two more people that we're going to call on to speak. And the first of those is her first cousin, Mark.
I'm her cousin Mark. I always loved coming to Cleveland, where I was born, but not this time. The last 2 weeks have been maybe the saddest 2 weeks of my life. And I didn't want to talk about, I'm a doctor and I was trying to help. But I didn't want to talk about that, but I think you should hear. Most people in our world have some role in how they leave this earth by the way they live, but Cindy didn't. None of this had anything to do with her. As a physician, the whole thing has been shocking and crazy every 2 days. Hope crushed. And she had nothing to do with it. But the reason I bring this up is that her family was so wonderful and so perfect. Kids in their 20s, convincing one of the proudest, most stubborn medical institutions in the world to do things they would never do, to stay open and do things on a weekend that they just don't do. Her brothers were fantastic. Todd was there. Emily, JC, and Peter were just wonderful, and they should hold their head high forever. It was really amazing to watch. But I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about how the ties that families who love each other, how long they last. It started before I was born, before me and my brothers and sisters were born. My mom told a story at a funeral where she looked around and saw so many people and said, this began in the 1930s when nobody had any money, and yet their parents would rent a cottage somewhere on a lake, and the extended family would get together, and they became close. And she said 60 years later, we're seeing the legacy of this. It extended, it continued before Cindy was born, when her dad, my favorite uncle, we called him Shunkle Shelley, he came to Boston and he decided to take we kids out on a little paddle boat on a lake, and the paddle broke and we're stuck in the middle of the lake. And the MDC police had to come out with a motorboat, and it was the greatest day of my life. My parents were so mad that he got us stuck in the middle of a lake at maybe age 5, and I loved him forever. And it continued before her kids were born. They would come to sometimes visit us on Cape Cod. And I still see Cindy. When I think of Cindy, I see her sparkling in the sun on the Cape. And to return the favors of Shelley, once we were walking along with the three kids, and we walked through somebody's path, and we heard an Irish Boston voice yelling at us, "Hey, this is private." And so they started to run, and I said, no, I was showing off. We need to face up to what we did. So we walked up to the woman and said, "I'm sorry. We thought this was just a public path." And she looked down, and she saw Cindy's doe eyes. She saw David and Mark staring up at her, and she said, "You want a puppy?" So we walked back to the house, and this is true. Mark's nodding, he remembers. And we had this puppy, and Renee looked at me and said, "Thanks a lot." And they had that dog for 15 years, I think. And it continued as the kids grew up. I remember they came to visit on the Cape, and we had our new baby, Leah. Michelle and I had a new baby. And they drove all the way from Cleveland, and they would sleep till 1 o'clock, and we drove us crazy. Beautiful sunny weather, there was an ocean, So we would throw the baby on the bed. That was the only thing that would wake them up. We'd say, baby alarm. So it continued before their children were born. And now, Michelle and I have been so happy to, really in the last few years, meet JC and Peter and Emily. And so this is so sad, but I do want to say that it isn't over. It doesn't end. I hope there are people who are not even born yet who will benefit from this love. I know my family loves, everyone in our family loves our cousins beyond words, and their children should hope, we hope this lasts forever.
Thank you so much, Mark. And I want to call on her son, JC.
Excuse me. Just so I have it. I'm not a religious person. As a kid, I even had an arrogance around my atheism. Don't worry, Cantor, while remaining proudly Jewish, culturally Jewish. But my mother once told me, everyone prays in a foxhole. So naturally, as I laid there with my mom, siblings, and father, I prayed as I watched her take her last breath. I guess Jews don't believe in heaven or hell, so I prayed she would be at peace with her parents she so desperately missed. My mom had the biggest heart I've ever known. She was kind and she was gentle. She listened, she understood, and most of the time, she had patience. I'm not sure who knows this, but I was a rambunctious, hyperactive, and emotional child. Despite a certain confidence, I often felt like the world didn't understand me, but she did. She always knew what to say and how to bring me peace. After her second maternity leave, she couldn't bear to leave us at home. At that moment, she dedicated her young life to her babies and retired at the ripe age of 30. From years of 6 a.m. hockey practice, to talking my frustrated teachers off the ledge, to never-ending forgotten school lunches, nothing slipped through the cracks, and nobody was left behind, sad or injured. When we were old enough to attend Fernway Elementary School, she again couldn't bear to lose the day of seeing her kids, the whole day. So she signed up to be a lunch aide, officiating kickball games and making sure every kid had proper snow pants to climb on the snow mounds. But when we graduated, she stuck around, and she went in for breakfast too, making sure every kid had proper nutrition for the day. Just to recap, any given morning might run like this. Wake up at 5:30, grab the dog, go for a 5-mile run. Get home, make breakfast smoothies, pack 3 lunches, wake us up, return 2 or even 3 times till we went back to bed. And due to the age gap, drive us 2 or at one time to even 3 different schools. Stop by Fernway Elementary for breakfast, go home, shower, and get back to Fernway for recess. On the coldest of Ohio mornings, after dropping us off at the high school, I even knew her to drive around, looking for any freezing kids painfully walking to school. Her kindness wasn't limited to humans. She spent hours poring through German short-haired pointer dog rescue Facebook groups. And while she couldn't adopt them all, she really, really wanted to. I got a lot of great qualities from my mom, like her chronic tardiness, germophobia, indecisiveness, and traditional Jewish neuroticism. She can rest peacefully, knowing I'll carry her legacy of being late while torn between a rock and a hard place. When we first met with Berkowitz-Kumin here, they said the limo would depart at 9:15 a.m. this morning. So instead of pretending I'd be in that car, like a mature adult my mother would be proud of, I asked Bart, "So what is the hard deadline of me showing up?" He responded, "The service begins at 10 a.m. I assumed Emily would tell you our beautiful mother, was classic, elegant, and with great taste. For me, that's embodied in a certain love my mother and I shared, that of the tactile. Fabrics, textures, and softness. She was one cozy woman who understood the value of blankets and being tucked in. She had an eye for interior design, and she was oh so proud of her cover feature in Shaker Life magazine with her remodeling and design work. There's a copy at the house. Maybe a few. For as long as I can remember, I anxiously looked forward to having her come to New York City to decorate my first apartment. What people don't tell you is that living alone is incredibly expensive, and so is furniture. So it didn't pan out during my college years in the Bronx or in my first few after graduating. But this August, and even in September, we were excitedly planning for her to come move me into my new place on October 1st. We've always shared an elegantly expensive taste, but nothing gaudy. We like colors as much as we love black, we love patterns, and we love raised material. Due to the shared love for the finer things, but with budgetary constraints, my mother became and taught me to be incredibly resourceful. She knew how to get a good deal and when to walk away from a bad one. She was always a proud writer, and via our extensive essay editing sessions over the years, she taught me everything I know about storytelling and copywriting. She was so creative, and it's hard to say which outlet I wish she focused on instead of me. But sometimes I do wish she took the time in her youth to give just one a fair shake. Whatever it was, she would have excelled. That said, it all worked out. In recent years, she found great joy and actualization in running the Reset Lounge Wellness Center with some of her best friends. It was a dream to spend her days with people, offering respite and a kind smile. I'm speaking last, so I assume by now her social and emotional intelligence might have been exhaustively covered. All I'll say is that she loved a social event and any reason to dress up. She was the life of the party, a profound conversationalist, witty and hilarious, a terrible but present dancer, and somehow, gracefully, usually the last to leave. She also instilled in me the foundational importance of alone time. As I'm sure you all know, she surrounded herself with the best people, good people, moral people, smart people, people with self-respect. As a young kid, we loved to gossip, mostly in a positive way, thoroughly discussing how much we adored certain neighborhood kids. Without explicitly saying it, she taught me to surround myself with a family of friends, just like her. I've never met anyone so kind, so gentle, so brilliant, and so beloved. As those before me have covered, my mother was a woman of nicknames. For me, her go-to was Rue or Rui, but that extended to Rooster, RuneScape, Rui Two Shoes, and of course, Tui. I'll never forget the last 2 shoes I so lovingly received on one of her final lucid days at Hillcrest. I'd be remiss not to mention Chautauqua. It's a very special place she made sure we experienced. Via its camp, colloquially known as Club, and unfettered access to the lake, it was a social and adventurous child's dream. A place for adolescent debauchery, yet sneakily wholesome. Through world-class lectures and arts programming, it was also rooted in intellectualism. No matter what happened, my mother figured it out and never let us miss a summer or, for that matter, a sports season. The time we spent with her and my grandmother Mimi in Chautauqua was profoundly developmental. I have core memories and forever friends to show for it. She had an unwavering support for my passions and encouraged me to see the world through a lens of boundless opportunity. Everything I am is a result of her love and support. It would be easy to say I don't know who I am without this woman, but that isn't what she'd want. She knew I know exactly who I am, and in the back of her mind, hopefully, she knew it's because she encouraged me to be whatever my heart desired, including my unrelenting silliness, distinct particularness, sometimes known as OCD, and wearing her slippers and high heels as I paced the patterns of our oriental rugs while we exchanged stories. I'm taking some of those rugs. We can discuss that later. I'll desperately miss her phone calls, but if there's a lesson to learn from this tragedy, it's one she preached all along. To live life in the moment, without regrets, and to always just show up. I'll love her forever. Thank you.
Thank you, JC. Friends, we're going to take just a brief moment now. There's a friend of the family who is sitting with us today, an oboist, Martin Newbert, who, as he offers a beautiful moment of musical meditation, we can all take a moment to think about Cindy as we ask God to accept her soul. Thank you, Martin. That was beautiful. Thank you. As you're able, friends, I invite you to rise now for the memorial prayer, El Malei Rachamim. El Malei Rachamim, shochen במרומים, עמסי מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע המסעירים, את נשמת Cynthia, Esther, bat Yehoshua ורחל, שהלכה לעולמה בגן עדן תמנוחתה. אנא ברחמים אסתירך בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, ותצרור בצרור חיים את נשבתה. אדוני נחלתה ותנוח בשלום, על משכבה ונאמר Amen. O merciful God, who dwells on high, who is full of compassion, grant perfect rest beneath the shelter of your divine presence among the holy and pure, who shine as the brightness of the firmament. To our dear departed Cynthia, Cindy Evans, who is known in the household of Israel by the Hebrew name of Tziliah Esther bat Yehoshua v'Rachel. To Cindy, may her brightness shine like the brightness of the firmament, and may her soul be bound up in the bonds of eternal life. Grant that her memory inspire us to noble and consecrated living. And to this we say, Amen. We turn now to the words of the Kaddish. I believe the family has the Kaddish cards. Okay. All right, friends, if you are familiar with the prayer, we invite you to join us as we say these words together. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, bi'alma divra chirotei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayichon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'yamru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam olamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudesha barechu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata da'amiran v'yalma v'yimru. Amen. Yehei shalama Rabbah min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yamru. Amen. Ose shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'yamru. Amen. We pray that God, who makes peace in a high place, will send peace and comfort to you, the mourners, to Israel, and to all humankind. Amen. Please be seated. Friends, let me just share 3 brief announcements with you. Immediately following the service, the family will receive visitors at the residence at 18300 Parkland Drive in Shaker Heights today until 8 p.m. and also tomorrow on Saturday and on Sunday as well from 12 until 8 p.m. Anyone who might be wishing to make a contribution in memory of Cindy, the family has suggested that you might consider the Ohio GSP Rescue, which stands for German Shorthair Pointer Dog, the Ohio GSP Rescue. Lastly, there has been a site set up, an email, and just as Todd and others have asked you to continue to share your stories and your memories, the families, the email that they have set up is called the address is cindyevansmemorial@gmail.com. That again is Cindy. Oh, forgive me. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Let me say it 2 more times. cindyevansmemories@gmail.com. Once again, cindyevansmemories@gmail.com. If you would, perhaps sometime this day, today or over the weekend, if you would email the family some of your favorite memories or stories about Cindy, I know it would touch their hearts and mean so much to them. At this time, as you've come here in peace, it's our prayer, our hope that you go forth today in peace. Thank you.
Apparently we're still in the limousine still there. Apparently we're in the front lobby. Oh, the front lobby? Yeah. They were supposed to be walking out this way. Where he told me so when the family comes that's nice if you rolled up. Like no umbrellas there. It's good.
Is there a picture here?
They're all in the limousine.
Is there a picture here?
No.
At any point?
No, there's I didn't see one here.
There's umbrellas right there.
Oh, is there?
Where, did you see what they did there?
You what?
Go take a look in there. Maybe they do, that's a trash can.
Ah. It's all right. The cleaning crew will find me.
Yeah.
On my dead body.
So the cleaning crew comes tomorrow.
Who's Kane?
And that's not a cane.
Does that use water or kitchen?
Thanks, guys.
Brian, is that broke?
What?
Is that broken?
No. I can just.
It's not broken?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.